Hey YouTube, Joe Walker here with Def Digits Guitar Lessons, and I'm going live right now to record this lesson for one of my Skype students, Andy. He is just starting to work on Summer of '69, and I want to go straight to the hard part and show him this thing. I played it right. I just learned that part maybe 10 minutes ago. So what I want to show Andy and you today is how to do that part. It sounds like in the recording it's a guitar and a keyboard playing that part at the same time. It's kind of dominated by synthesizer, but I think there is a guitar in there doing it too. And it's based off of a D chord and an A chord. Those are the two chords from the verse in this song, going D, A. And if my A looks weird to you, I usually play my A like this, and this is going to be relevant in just a minute when we start doing these little arpeggios. So A, most people will play it like this with 3 fingers, straight across like that. Sometimes with 2 of these fingers switched like this. I usually play it like this, and all of those are perfectly valid options. Whichever way you normally play it will probably dictate the way you will probably want to do this arpeggio section. So coming to the D chord first, this is what it needs to sound like. If I just loop the D chord over and over. Now really slowly. So we're manipulating the high E string when we do this. Those moving notes that we hear going down and down and down and down, down, down. You can maybe see just my middle finger and my pinky finger moving just a little bit through that D chord. Mostly I'm just holding a standard D chord like this. To start it off, I'm going to open up that high E string, take my middle finger off the high E string, and play those 3 strings descending. The high E string, then the B string, then the G string. So you get those 3 notes. So your first 3 notes. Open on the high E, 3rd fret on the B, 2nd fret on the G string. And that's just taking a D chord, take your middle finger off. Your next 3 notes, you put your middle finger back on, so it's a standard D. And you come straight down through descending those notes again. So we go from the beginning now. It's next group of 3 notes, you're going to add your pinky to the high E string and descend 3 notes again, and then take your pinky off and descend 3 notes again. And these chords are actually, all 3 of these different chords have names. One of them is just D, D major. This one's D sus2 that you start with. When your pinky comes on the 3rd fret, that's D sus4. So if you look at a chord chart for this song, you might see those chords notated in there. So that gets us almost through the end of the pattern. We've got this so far. We need 4 more notes. We go open on the high E, and then down to the G string, and come back to 2nd fret high E, down to the G string. That's 2nd fret on G string. So you're still holding D chord. All you're doing is moving notes around on the high E string. So really slowly, all of that is D sus2, D, D sus4, D. Then we get open E, down to the 2nd fret G string, back to 2nd fret E, down to the 2nd fret G string. So those last 4 notes are probably the trickier ones to pick because you have to skip a string 4 notes in a row. You have to go, if you loop those 4 notes in a row, you're skipping over the B string each time you make one of those pick strokes. So if I were trying to get my technique, my right hand technique up to speed, jumping around between the different strings, this might be the first thing that I zoom in on, is I might say, hey, that's probably going to be the hardest part of this, is doing those last 4 notes, trying to keep them in time with the rest. So you can zoom in right there and just tell yourself, this is a good exercise for me to do just for a little bit, and try to get those 4 notes flowing. And one of the things that I've done in the past that really helps me do this is when I set up my technique on my right-hand side, I make sure that that little groove right there in the middle of my palm, at the heel of my palm, that groove kind of straddles the corner of the bridge right up here. And that's my point of rotation. That's roughly where I start from. And then I might need to move this way to go to the higher strings or this way to go to the lower strings. But that's roughly where I start from. And then instead of playing the notes, I air play them. Just imagine, try to make this feel as relaxed as possible. And imagine the notes coming out, going down, 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 down. So I imagine them coming out faster than I can possibly do cleanly in my right hand, but I keep it really relaxed over here. And then slowly I bring my pick to the strings, and it's going to be really messy. So I might be thinking, and just for a second there, I had it. So I have this little inkling of, yeah, maybe I can do it at that speed. And I've done this before, so it's coming pretty rapidly back to me again in this particular situation. But you can follow that same path, set up with a really relaxed technique over here. Just imagine those notes coming out and what you want it to feel like, air playing, and then bring your pick to the strings and let it come out messy, but keep it relaxed over here. And combine that with, you know, the slow approach of going like this note, then this note, then this note. So it's like you're attacking the problem from two different sides. You're attacking it from the slow, deliberate thinking side of exactly where every single note goes and what the exact order of the correct notes is. And then you're attacking it from the feel side of just, I want it to feel like this and I want the right sound to come out. Let's see what happens. Because that forces this to be more relaxed. It's sort of like the analogy I always use with my students is a giant picking you up by the armpits and running you really fast over the ground so that your legs have to run instead of walk and try to deliberately step in certain places. You have to go a lot faster than you possibly can. And you just have to keep your legs relaxed when you do that or you're going to get hurt. So keep this side relaxed when you're doing this and don't let it get tense and just let the notes come out messy. And that really helps with your ability to play the whole thing when you're attacking it from both sides, the thinking deliberate side and the feel side over here. So that takes care of the D chord. Once you get all those notes down in order, it will be useful to just go over and over on that pattern just on D. Whoops, from the top. There's one thing I haven't really mentioned yet, and it's the direction that I'm picking, all of those pick directions. If you can make this alternate picking, that will serve really well in keeping it really relaxed. That's what I was talking about just a moment ago when I put this here and make this technique really relaxed and just go back and forth and make it feel the way you want it to feel before the notes even come out. And that would probably be alternate picking if you were doing it that way. Another alternative you could use would be something like up, up, down. Let's see. Up, up, down, up, up, down, up, up, up. Up, down, up, down, up, up, down. Yeah. If you have something else that comes out intuitively for you, let it happen. But on the flip side, see if you can explore the strict alternate picking route too. If you can force yourself to start with a downstroke on that first one and keep every single pick alternate picking all the way through, that is a tried and true method that a lot of people have been able to play fast stuff using that alternate picking method. So if you have your own way of doing it, maybe that's naturally what your hand wants to do at the slow speed where you're learning it. and that might not be the technique that you need in order to get it up to full speed of the song. So let's look at the A chord next. When you go to the A chord, it's actually the same exact pattern relative to the A root note. So we start with the A chord. I'm going to start by doing it in the conventional fingering like this, and then I'll show you my alternative. So this is finger, open A, first finger on the second fret, second finger, and third finger. So we start with that third finger is off. We get open B string, B string, G string, D string, like that. And then we're going to do the same pattern on the B string that we did a minute ago on D, on the high E string. So it's going to go same pattern that was up here on D. So in order to get those notes from the conventional A chord fingering, you take your ring finger off, you get open, put it back on, you get second fret, put your pinky on to the third fret, and then back to A. And then our final four notes are the same as before. Open, second fret. And then the chord names are the same as they were before, with A as your root now. A sus2, A sus4, A, and then your last four notes. Now for me, that's really, really tense and awkward over here, and that's probably just because I don't normally play A's like this. If you normally do, maybe this will be easier for you, so you don't have to change the way you're doing it. But the way I like this a little bit better is to go, just take these two fingers to get the first chord, A sus2, put them right there where they were before, but then I switch to this fingering to get A. Oops. And then I go to A sus4 by putting my third finger up here, and then back to A. And then I have to take that finger off to get the last four notes. But I don't need a whole A chord to get the last four notes because it doesn't use that middle string. It doesn't use the G string. So this is all I need. And then I'm back to D. So if you can hear, what I'm hearing of my own playing is that it needs to be a little bit cleaner. The notes need to ring out a little bit better. As you're working on this, you'll probably have the same kind of thing. If you're trying to get those three notes to ring out, and you get that happening, and they're not all ringing out together because there's a finger that's clunking out the next string, that's an obvious first thing to work on. Or that's an obvious technique thing to work on. You might be more focused on just getting the right notes in the right order first. And especially with all these moving parts on these chords, there's a lot more chances for strings to get, that are supposed to be ringing out, to get clunked and get muffled and muted too soon than if you were just like strumming a chord and going to another chord. Let's see, I think that's all I have for you now. I'm just going to play it back and forth really slowly on D and A so that you have, now that you've learned the notes, you have a little thing at the end of this video to play along with. Ding, ding, ding. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's twice through at a nice slow tempo, and that you'll find is not slow enough when you first start learning the song, and that's okay. Get those notes together in order, and then your first stepping stone goal will be to come to the end of this video and play along with those couple times through that I just did on D and A. If you liked this kind of thing, click the like button, leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. I make these videos often for my private students here in Seattle and on Skype. And if you've got certain things that you'd love to hear me cover, just go ahead and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. See ya.